Welcome back. Rushing quarterbacks mean fantasy goodness. None more than these five names. Here are the top quarterback fantasy seasons of the last 2 decades based on rushing stats alone. At number 5, we've got Offensive Rookie of the Year Robert Griffin III in 2012. RG3 rocketed into the NFL with 815 yards and 7 touchdowns for a total of 123.5 fantasy points on the ground alone. Did I mention he was a rookie? At number 4 is former Panther, now Patriot, Cam Newton in his 2015 MVP campaign. Newton led all quarterbacks in fantasy scoring that season, thanks in no small part to 636 yards and 10 touchdowns of the rushing variety, good for 123.6 fantasy points, a tenth of a point ahead of Griffin. Blazing into the number 3 spot is the guy who made running QBs cool, Michael Vick. In 2002, Vick ran for 777 yards and 8 TDs as a second-year pro, and his 126 fantasy points as a runner boosted him to the QB3 that season. Coming in second is a man making his second appearance on our list. Cam Newton set the single-season rushing touchdown record for quarterbacks with his 14 scores as a rookie in 2011. He combined that feat with 706 yards for a total of 155 fantasy points with his feet and a QB3 finish that year. And finally, the man you've probably all been waiting for, at number 1, who else but Lamar Jackson. In 2019, Jackson set the single-season rushing yards record for QBs with 1,206 and added 7 touchdowns to finish with a cool 159 rushing fantasy points and the top spot in fantasy. We'll see if 2020 brings a new member to the list like Kyler Murray, or whether Cam can make it a three-peat. Until then, this has been Ask a Nerd, and may the fantasy points be with you.
Oh, our own mustache here on the Fantasy Football Show brings it each and every week. So far, we have not had a bad performance from our own mustache guy, Matt O'Connor. He mentioned Kyler Murray there in that one, and through 2 weeks, Florio, Kyler is on pace to break Lamar Jackson's single-season quarterback rushing record. I know it's on-pace stats are fun to talk about. Rarely do they come through, but with what you've seen, does Kyler have a legit shot at the record this year?
Does he have a legit shot? I think so. Will he do it? No. I mean, he has the ability to put up a rushing season like they did last year, but I think that we're going to see more passing coming out of Kyler Murray. He's yet to throw multiple passing touchdowns in the game this year. But what I'm hoping, Marcus, is that this becomes more and more common, right? Like that we see quarterbacks just putting up big time rushing numbers, not just, doing it when no one's open, like design runs and everything, because it is so hard to stop some of these rushing quarterbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because what it does is it forces the defense to actually play 11 on 11. When you have a guy who stands back there in the pocket and doesn't move, you're playing 11 on 10. Defensively, you have that advantage. Now, suddenly, you've got a guy that can move. You've got to pay attention to him. It is what I think made Patrick Mahomes even more dangerous in the playoffs last year because he started to run the football. And so suddenly, if you're a defensive back, it's hard. You have to turn your back to kind of chase those wide receivers. And in the meantime, that gives Mahomes the ability to take off and run down the field with the football. Now, you look last year at the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks, and 7 of those 10 had at least 250 rushing yards. So that kind of says that you do have to run in order to be a good fantasy quarterback, a productive fantasy quarterback, but it is not impossible. Who do you think are some of the quote-unquote non-rushing QBs that could end up in the top 10 this year?
Yeah, if you can't run, I likely do not want you on my fantasy roster. But there's some exceptions, and one I think is Matt Ryan. Like, we're already seeing the big-time passing volume that he's going to give us each week. He's probably going to be trailing often this year. And the other, I think, is Aaron Rodgers, because he just seems to be on this revenge tour that Adam Rank has, been hyping up before anyone. So lots of credit to him. But he's throwing the ball a lot too this year. If you're not running the ball, you need to have a lot of pass attempts and a high touchdown percentage. So maybe Big Ben can also fit that bill, but there's not a lot of non-rushing quarterbacks I think that can finish top 10.
Yeah, you mentioned two that I think could do it. I think Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers are top of the list. Yeah, it's not too late for Ben to turn it around, although his passing numbers have been sort of meh the first couple of weeks of the season. It hasn't been what I thought it would be coming out. Maybe it just, he needs some sort of time to kind of get back into things, but that could certainly happen. But Rodgers and Ryan, I think, are legit. But otherwise, look, you see why the quarterbacks who can run are coming off the board first. There's a reason that people were clamoring for Lamar Jackson in the early rounds because as the fantasy guru Rich Rebar said so many years ago, quarterbacks who run are like a cheat code. That's something that you want on your roster in as many places as you can get.